talk more about this with Gerald Celente, publisher of the TrendsJournal. Thank you very much for joining us here on RT again. So, U.S. promising tougher economic sanctions. What do you think is in the offering here?
Well, they're limited in what they can do, but as you just pointed out, Matt, the S&P just downgraded Russia's credit rating to BBB minus, and Russia has been forced to raise its interest rate to 7.5%. And this is at a time, of course, when the economy is going down a little bit. And you don't raise it's not a recipe for economic growth to raise interest rates in a declining economy. So the pressure is starting to hit at some levels. It cannot be denied. But of course, down there's the other side of the equation, and that is, of course, how far are the European Union, and how far are they going to go, considering that they're so dependent on Russian gas deliveries, and the United States doesn't do that much business with Russia. So they're going to try to keep doing more, but the success is going to be limited in terms of sanctions.
Now, in your view, does the U.S. stand to gain at all from this approach in dealing with the crisis?
Well, what they're gaining is on the propaganda front. I have in front of me from the New York Times, for example. This goes back to April, this is just recently, April 17th. A military operation that Ukrainian government said would confront pro-Russian militants. Pro-Russian militants, pro-Russian militants, pro-Russian militants. Everywhere I have outlined and circled pro-Russian militants, pro-Russian militants. Everywhere you look, there are pro-Russian militants, page after page. Every time that they refer to what's going on in East Ukraine, it's pro-Russian militants. So the propaganda campaign is very important because at a time when economic conditions aren't very good in the United States and otherwise, when all else fails, they take you to war. So they could use the propaganda in a very effective way to talk about what's going on in Ukraine and blame it on international tensions. So when they talk about, as was earlier in the broadcast, what was going on in Ukraine and Kyiv earlier, these were civil defense units, and they were European pro-democratic nationalists. So you can see the effectiveness of propaganda.
Previous measures targeting only one bank and a few individuals, and Moscow kind of laughed them away. Do you think Washington is ready to go after more large sectors of Russia's economy, perhaps with targeted sanctions?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it, because there's no end in sight in the Ukrainian crisis. And again, the propaganda war is very important. They say that in war, truth is the first casualty. Go back to the Iraq War. Look at the American media during that time. Out of the major networks, say almost 400 interviews were pro-war, 1% questioned the war or were against the Iraq War. So yeah, they're going to keep using sanctions, but there's a bigger agenda at stake here. And again, the Ukraine crisis, take a look at the stock market today in the U.S., down 140 points. What did they blame it on? Destabilization in Ukraine. Oh, couldn't be because of the economic problems and that new mortgage applications are at 14-year lows. No, it was Ukraine.
All right, we have to leave it there. Gerald Celente, thank you for your time.
Thank you.